This is my Ironman 70.3 Valencia race recap. I'm going to be going through my initial impressions of the race, my thoughts and feelings about what went down, and then a play-by-play of swim, bike, run, and then a few bits about what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the season, so stay tuned.
I'll keep you posted with where I'm at.
Yeah. Bye. I'll come find you.
First things first, I am buzzing with the result, and despite it being the same result, 7th place, as I came this time last year in Lanzarote, I feel as though it was a much better performance from me all round. And to line up in one of the biggest start lines that I've ever lined up on, 90 men I think it was to begin with, maybe it thinned down to about 85, I think 76 finished the race. So it was massive. And there was a ton of great runners in there too. So to hold my own against the runners and the running field, that's a first for me because I'm a bit more of a swim bike specialist rather than historically a run specialist.
Good run.
Yeah. Yes. Where do I go for a wee?
There were a few nerves obviously at the start of the race, lining up with 90 other men on the start line, on a pontoon nonetheless, which I historically don't fare that well in because I'm a relatively short guy, and despite being a half-decent swimmer, I just get mobbed down off of the pontoon because my levers aren't as big, people can get on my hip and just drown me essentially. So I was a little bit nervous about that to begin with, but I managed to get into a good starting position on the pontoon, right next to Leo Berger, the eventual winner of the race. So I knew that he was a good swimmer because of his ITU background. He's literally a world champion. So I think that I positioned myself really well on that start lineup. And that was a little bit of luck, but also obviously tactics. I wanted to start next to the faster swimmers on the far left-hand side of the pontoon as well, because that was probably the best line. It was the inside line to the first buoy. The first buoy was so close. It was 150 meters, which is not very far because if you've got a long way to go to the first buoy, there's a little bit further to basically split the field up. So it's not as much of like a mosh when you get to that first buoy. But 150 meters isn't really long enough to thin out the field. So it basically meant that quite a few people were there at the first buoy and got a little bit battered. It wasn't too bad, but to get there was a little bit hectic. I think people were really scrapping to try and get there in a good position, myself included. Like, I didn't want to like scrap anyone, obviously, but I was getting like a little bit jostled and hit from each side, and I just had to make myself get there as easy and fast as possible without spending all my matches. Anyway, around the first buoy we hung a left, and then another left, and then it was like to the far side, right into the sun. Couldn't see anything. I just had my head down, trying to follow the bubbles. Wasn't doing a very good job of it at all. Had no idea where I was in comparison to the rest of the field, but I was just going hard and hoped that that was going to be enough to put me somewhere in the remit of the front group. Luckily, by the time that I'd taken the next two right-handers around the next two boys at the far end, started to be able to see a little bit more, and I realised that there weren't too many people in front of me, which is basically exactly where I needed to be. I didn't want to be like right at the front, taking it on. Not that I could have done, I wasn't fast enough. I was already like feeling the burn and just kind of like trying to get stuck in and not overcook myself, because I was finding it really tough and fast. But I was in that front group of people, and I was just trying to hang on in there, not really making things difficult for myself by fighting anyone or getting people on my hip and getting them to drag me back. I was trying to like avoid all that stuff and just make it as easy as possible for everyone around me and myself. Managed to get to the end of the swim with that front pack. I think we maybe put a minute or so into the pack behind. But I could not get out of the water, and this is where the race, I think, completely changed from where it could have been for me. But essentially, there was a little pontoon thing which you had to like haul yourself out onto, like basically sea otter and belly flop onto the pontoon. And I didn't realise this because I hadn't done the swim recce, so rookie error there. But I hadn't done it, and I couldn't haul myself out. So whilst I was in the middle of this front pack of swimmers, the people behind me were now like catching me and like dragging me back into the water because they were also trying to just haul themselves out. Anyway, I ended up coming out of the water basically last because of all of this like shenanigans trying to get out the water. And that was just like then a comedy of errors, because I got to the benches where you get changed or do your T1 last. No space on the benches, so I had to stand and like scrap around trying to get my stuff ready and sorted. Took extra time there because there wasn't enough space. And then I had to get to my bike as well, which is, you know, that's fine, like there's just people around, that is what it is. But that combined with not being able to get out of the water meant that Leo Berger had gone. Like he'd completely disappeared up the road. 30 seconds he put into me by getting out of the water where he did and then just buggering off into the distance. I didn't realise that he'd done that. So after the first 5 minutes on the bike, I'd settled into the group, not thinking, oh, someone's up the road, I need to put the hammer down to try and shut that gap. I might not have been able to, but I didn't realise that he was there. So essentially, I went to the front of the group eventually to pull some turns and put in an effort, try and drag us away from anyone behind, more runners behind, etc. And when I was there, I had my head down, I was working hard, going fast. And then in the distance, I saw someone riding. I was like, nah, that can't be the case. Anyway, I thought Leo was in our group somewhere. I didn't really know what he looked like on the bike because I haven't ridden with him before in a long course race. So I just assumed he was there. And then I saw him up the road and I was like, so not only was he 30 seconds up the road out of T1, he'd probably put an extra 15, 20 seconds into us already on the road. So I basically went to work then for a good 10, 15 minutes, I reckon, trying to shut that gap. And it came down from about, let's call it 45, 50 seconds to about 20 seconds. So I probably shut 25 seconds of that gap, but there was still 20 seconds still to bridge. And I think if I tried to bridge that gap, I probably would have spent all of my pennies, and I just didn't, I was scared of it in all honesty, so I didn't want to commit to that. And I think if I'd done it from like 30 seconds out, and obviously take 25 seconds off maybe, then you've only got 5 seconds to shut, and you might be able to do it then. So it could have been completely different. It wasn't. I made the error. I didn't commit at the start of the ride. Should have done. But yeah, it wouldn't have affected the race in terms of Leo winning or anything like that. Absolutely not. It could have helped my race because there would have been one extra person to maybe help with the bike pace. So me and Jan Stratman were the two main drivers on the bike. Leo could have been another one had we made it to him, but we didn't. So what happened was essentially is myself and Jan took up most of the workload, and we worked hard. Like I think I pulled about a half an hour turn whilst we went up the hill rode it maybe 360, 370 watts for 35 minutes, I think it was. So pretty solid, like it wasn't weak at all. And that was from 30 minutes to an hour, I think it was. Then we had a bit of a technical descent. Jan took that up, led us down the mountain essentially, or the hill. And then it got to the flat part. Again, I took up the lead there and put down some power and led us into T2 essentially. So yeah, we'd pulled a gap on the group behind of about 2 minutes. And I think we got rid of from 7 to 5 people, so 2 people. So yeah, it was good that I was in the top 5 or 6 coming into T2. I led into T2, so I was second into T2 after Leo. And first out of T2. So I managed to get a little bit of a gap there, which all boded well for the run, because then I had a little bit of a gap where I could try and just consolidate myself there and not get run down too quickly, which happened. So on to the run. I felt great on the run, like not necessarily for the first lap, but in general I felt as though I was running really well. I hadn't got my watch on, so I didn't really know how fast I was running, but just by feel, I was moving across the ground pretty decently, for me, this is. So I felt as though I was going really well. However, everyone around me was moving so much quicker, I could not believe it. I even said to Em, this is ridiculous.
1 lap left! 1 lap!
Running well.
I know, just keep going!
So anyway, obviously it was a really big field. There was a lot of people. People potentially were able to conserve their energy on the bike in big groups, and then they were able to run really fast as well, because not only were they good swim bikers, they were ITU, a lot of them were ITU people who could run phenomenally well. So the amount of people that ran around the 71-minute mark was ridiculous, to be quite honest. So they were just flying past me from the group behind, and they were 2 minutes behind, don't forget. So after a lap, when they were passing me, they put 2 minutes into me in 10K. I was like, are you for real? And I was just a bit deflated, because I was like, I'm running really well here, but I'm still not even gonna get top 15. That was like kind of where I was at, because I was in about 10th at this point, or 9th, maybe 10th. Yeah. So I was like, anyway, I managed to keep my pace pretty solid and even throughout the rest of the run, and this allowed me to basically pick people off because they'd gone out too hard. And that was a new one for me, because I've never experienced that, whether it be in short course or long course, overtaking someone on the run. So that was a really nice feeling to be able to like just claw back a few places, get into the prize money, I think, which was the most important thing for me as well, because it meant I could actually afford to do another race now as well, rather than not be in the prize money and it not cover my expenses for that trip, for example. So yeah, all in all, really pleased. I think that was by far and away the best run performance that I've ever had, or best even performance I've had potentially in a 70.3 race, because I rode on the front of the bike the large part of the time, rode really good numbers, and then I ran my best time off of the bike by 2 minutes for a half marathon. So I can't really complain with that. Yeah, it was really good. And then, yeah, I think like well done to everyone who did that course, because it was pretty solid and pretty savage. Yeah, I was really pleased with how I went. Really looking forward to the rest of the season. Hopefully you stay tuned too, so make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
What happened?
Oh yeah, it does slightly. My hair's in the way though.
But you've also just got water on your forehead.